Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. Today I shall be talking about the game Pioneers of Pagonia. Pioneers of Pagonia is a strategic settlement building game that was developed and published by Envision Entertainment. It was released on the 11th of December 2025. In Pioneers of Pagonia, you build up settlements for your people in a land covered by a mysterious fog. You will construct all sorts of different buildings to serve various production chains, like cutting and processing wood and minerals, farms, fishing, and all sorts. Before we get going, dear viewers, if you like what I do down here in the ancient hold, then please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Maybe give it a like and perhaps leave a comment with your own thoughts on the game. I reply to everyone that does and appreciate all the support for this old dwarf. So, Pioneers of Pagonia. This is another one of those games that I wishlisted while it was in early access. I haven't played many city builder type games in a while, so when it had its full release I thought I would check it out. I'm an old dwarf, but when I was a beardling there was a game called The Settlers, which I played on the old Amiga. I was thoroughly impressed by the quaint graphics with the buildings and little people walking around. It was a game of settlement building, expanding territory and production chains. I had such fun building things up and watching carriers carry wood and coal and all sorts of things. And, of course, the prospectors shouting "Yippee!" when they discovered something. I mention this because it had quite an impact on me as a beardling and how I look at colony sims and such. So when something comes along and someone somewhere says, "Oh, it's like The Settlers," then my ears prick up. So yes, if you played it back in the day, then you'll probably look at this game with some interest. Graphically, the game is vibrant and rich in colour. It is a very summery looking game, with the different hues on show giving off that warm feeling. The world feels welcoming, even though there is that ominous fog. It certainly is in keeping with what you might see in Settlers games, or any other where they're trying to exude a nice kind of feeling when you look upon it, and it does that rather well. Pioneers of Pagonia is certainly not trying to be a grimmer title, like Banished or something, with the harshness to go alongside difficult conditions. The buildings are kind of quirky but functional, and they feed into the positive vibe that is going on here. I would say that sometimes it can be difficult to locate a building sometimes, perhaps because there are so many types, and maybe because the buildings kind of meld together sometimes as you move quickly around the screen. The people, as they walk around transporting and moving to build or man a guardhouse or something, look pleasant enough. I would have liked them to appear a little bit bigger if I'm honest, and maybe a little more cartoony or quaint. Being smaller and more numerous, it can be a little bit more difficult to follow things moving around as I would like. The UI is simple and clean, with good indication of what icons are and what they do. There is a stream of messages on the left updating you on events going on in game, like running low on homes, the finding of iron in the hills, or your people being attacked by rogues or even wild animals. At the top of the screen is a bundle of information stating numbers of different materials you have, how many people need housing, weapons, tools, and others. I think this is great. It doesn't take up too much space, but allows you to quickly glance at the stats rather than looking through multiple menus trying to find what you're looking for. You can also resize this as you need. Sound-wise, it sticks to the warm feeling with a pleasant instrumental backing to proceedings. It is rather fitting for the setting. Besides this, there are all sorts of sounds building together to bring a chorus of noise generated by a working settlement. There are several modes that you can choose from when you start the game. There is the campaign, one-off custom modes, as well as co-op. I spent most of my time in the campaign as I like to have a little bit of a story and how the game works explained early on. I imagine a lot of people enjoy the one-off custom games too. The co-op is interesting. You can apparently play one faction with two people, both setting up buildings and roads for the same cause. I'm not sure how well that would work if I tried it with my OCD, but I imagine it must be quite fun for two people. The premise here is that there was some kind of world-changing event that upended the land, sending bits of it all over the place while creating new isles and land masses, and dispersing peoples of Pagonia all over the shop. It is up to us to rebuild civilization and discover what caused this cataclysmic event, while also trying to find out what this fog is all about. So now we have described what's going on, let's actually have a look at the gameplay. No matter what sort of game mode you choose, the overall idea of what you have to do is the same. You're going to construct various buildings linked by roadways in such a way as to build a thriving settlement where everyone has somewhere to live and numerous production chains are created. There is quite a lot of little different processes you have to deal with, especially as you start expanding the settlement. Miners need food rations that are made at the provisioner, which is fed by foragers and hunters, farms and other places. It can be a little bit overwhelming with the sheer number of buildings and their uses, but the game does do a good job of unlocking more complicated buildings and professions as you play, which is great. When you go to place a building, you'll be presented with little grids that show you where you can build and how much space will be used. Buildings vary in their footprint and what sort of materials there will need to be built. Some are merely 1x1 little things, where the larger ones can be 4x4 and even greater. Your little people will head out and begin building what you have placed. Higher grade buildings will need proper builders and materials like wooden planks and concrete rather than plain old wood. But, dear viewers, they will not build anything if the building is not connected to the rest of your settlement via a road. For yes, roads are a thing in this game, and important they are. This was of course one of the things avid settler fans would appreciate. Creating roads, dealing with space and wonky bits of land, obstacles and buildings was all part of making a settlement. Luckily, here in Pioneers of Pagonia, creating roads is a simple endeavour. It makes use of waypoints and some auto-pathing to help you quickly and easily construct a network for your population to make use of. There are no flags though, which you could erect to shorten distances for carriers, but multiple workers can travel at the same time, which evens it up a bit. It is best to have some forward thinking when placing structures, so that you can have relevant buildings close to one another, along with a decent road network connecting everything together. Otherwise, everything can become a bit of a mess. As well as not looking particularly aesthetically pleasing, your workers will undoubtedly have to walk much further to do anything than if you had a bit of a think about things before placing infrastructure. So yes, indeed, some planning and thought needs to go into things. You cannot build wherever you want in Pioneers of Pagonia. There are restrictions such as soil quality and rocky terrain, but there is also a more prominent reason. You can only build things in your territory, which is denoted by a boundary of little posts. If conditions are correct, you can only construct things inside this boundary. And what, dear dwarf, do you do if you run out of space? Well, dear viewers, you will need to expand your territory, of course. This is done through the creation of military buildings. Military buildings are those which house your guards, soldiers, rangers, and other more uncommon units. Just like the settlers, you want to build these buildings at the perimeter of your territory. Unlike the settlers though, you will not immediately gain more territory once a guard or soldier arrives there. You must first make sure that you have guards in the building and that the expanded territory button is pressed. Guards will then venture off to the boundaries and extend them a bit at a time using rocks from your supply. You can specifically set the direction or area you want them to focus on by selecting it from the building menu, which is nice. In fact, most resource gathering or any other activity where it makes sense will allow you to specify where you want workers to focus, which is really nice. Besides the various production chains and military buildings, there are some more interesting features added to the game. These are further to what you might expect, which I feel are a good addition. There are treasure hunters, which you can send out to explore ruins in search of treasure. They can find clues to locations to other buried treasures on the map, which is cool. There are pathfinders too, which you can use to clear obstacles like rockfalls and thorned barriers. Rangers are special troops that can find thieves who pretend to be on your side before stealing valuable items from you. There are also magical items and weaponry you can create and discover that allows you to recruit esoteric units like warlocks and fearnaughts and sorceresses. You will need to discover gems and silver/gold in order to recruit such units, but they are vital to the safety of your settlement. Your guards and soldiers and other units will attack any enemies that venture near the guardhouse or other military building. You can even set them to attack wild boars in the area if they are causing too much trouble. Guards are defensive units, which means you cannot use them to attack things outside your territory. Soldiers and other units must be used to do this, for there are a number of hostile creatures in the lands of Pagonia that will need dealing with. There are bandits and aforementioned thieves that must be dealt with, alongside more unusual enemies like spectres and werewolves. There are scavs also, who expand quickly and gobble up all the materials they can find. Your soldiers can deal with thief camps, bandits and even scavs, but enemies like spectres need specific units to counter them. The same with werewolves and other beasties too. So you need to create specific units for the job who will need specific weaponry. Combat simply involves selecting one of your military buildings and then selecting the attack button. You can then select an area on the map where you wish them to attack. They will run over there and anything near where you have denoted will be attacked by your units. Training stronger versions of units will help you win the day in a fight. All of your troops gain an attack power buff depending on the amount of gold and gems and other things that you have in your treasuries. This is a take on the old settlers upgrading system, where you would send gold coins to military buildings to rank up the soldiers there. The campaign has a good number of missions in it that focus on slightly different aspects and enemies, along with introducing new buildings and unit types. There is also variation in what you need to accomplish. You'll need to build and expand, of course, but there are some interesting situations you will encounter, like needing lots of hardwood on a level where none is growing, or land is squeezed in between rocks and trees and such that you have to think cleverly when placing buildings and roads. Maps can take quite a while to finish, with extra objectives coming up as you progress. This means the campaign is rather long, but it has been created in such a way that every level isn't entirely the same thing every time. If you want to play a one-off map, you can craft it to the experience you want, with all sorts of settings and several endgame objectives that you might wish to work towards. There is a good amount of variation here, which will add some longevity to the game. Overall, I had good fun with this game. The main features allow for fun and interesting gameplay. The little things, though, are taken care of too. Just little things like getting hunters to focus on taking out boars first, roads auto-pathing, setting specific variables at different production buildings and so on, which really helps to glue this all together into a well-made and functioning game. It has lit up the fire of city builders into me once more, so I'll probably have a look at a few others in the future. Pioneers of Pagonia focuses mostly on the settlement building and production of goods and materials, with the combat certainly being part of it, but if you're looking for something more focused on battling enemies with microcontrol and such, then this isn't going to provide that. The game is first and foremost a settlement builder. It's bright and colourful and I guess I would say positive, and I can get on board with that. If you like building settlements and production chains in a quaint world, then this is for you. And there we go, dear viewers, another video from me here down in the ancient hold. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching and I shall see you next time.